All right. We're here in Sussex, New Jersey, in the shop of Brett Hearn. Brett, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. It's Thursday, a couple days away from, actually 1 day away from the race weekend beginning, and things are looking pretty good.
You going anywhere Friday night?
Actually, we've been going to Albany, Saratoga on Friday nights on a regular basis, leading the points there. Got a narrow point lead, but we do have a point lead, so we've got to go protect that tomorrow night.
Very good. So Friday, Albany, Saratoga, then you're off to Orange County the next night.
Correct.
Scout night, June 22nd. Free admission for scouts. Sorry, I'm going to get all my little intro things in here, so I don't have to record a separate intro.
Gotcha.
I'm going to get all my little marketing bits out.
All right.
So it's free admission for scouts on this Saturday night, June 22nd. And we got a gate giveaway for the scouts. We're going to give them patches, Scout Night patches, and we're going to have scouts on the track to do color guard, Pledge of Allegiance, and start the show.
Nice.
So it's going to be a nice night for the kids, and hopefully get a lot of local scouts out and be a cool night.
Good deal.
So, the biggest thing we got going on this year, and the thing that I want to talk to you most about, is the 100th anniversary event. And I guess kind of just ask the general question of what does it kind of mean to the sport, and what does it say about where we are right now in the sport of dirt racing, and just like, I guess just really what it means to you as a driver to have, something like this happening.
Well, I think that, first of all, I think it's really cool that, the history of the speedways being paid that much attention to. We've never had a chance to run for, I don't even know what the total purse is, but I mean, to run for a winner's share of $100,000 on the last night, not to mention there's two other fairly big races, the 2 nights leading up to it. To run for that kind of prize money for the winner has never really been done before in our sport. Some of the old purses at the mile were inflated by other prizes that made it look like that we were receiving $100,000. And probably in total value we might have been, but not in terms of a cash prize. So that's got everyone's attention. And it's interesting because. Also, a big race like this has never been done that I can remember in the middle of the summer on a weekend. So, you've got to get some cooperation from some of the other speedways that race on a regular night to join in and allow their drivers, or at least their top drivers, to come and compete for this, this gigantic prize.
Yeah, and we're so thankful that it seems like everybody's cooperated, and we're all kind of all on the same page here. It looks like, right, we don't have any major conflicts that weekend. So.
Yeah, I think it looks like the most of the speedways have cooperated, and most of the guys that think they have a chance to win the thing, or anybody that thinks they have a chance to win the thing, will probably be there.
So what is that? I mean, that's do you think people who don't necessarily think they have a chance to win are just as excited to run this race as those who do?
Well, yeah, I do, and because the start prize isn't too bad either. So
right, I mean, just to start the race,
even if you think you can just make the feature, you'll be rewarded. So
right.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
But I mean, just for the historical significance, I would think there's a lot of drivers who maybe don't even care how they finish, just excited to be a part of the 100th anniversary and such a, unprecedented, monumental event.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, for me, the fact that a lot of these guys that are being remembered and honored by this race were guys that I grew up, in my early years watching. Now, I wasn't a fan for many years before I started the race, but I did have my favorites, and it's cool to see those guys being remembered as the great drivers that they were.
Who were some of those favorites?
Well, the Buzzy Rudiman, Gary Ballou, Bobby Botcher, all those, Carl Van Horn. I mean, these are guys that were my heroes. I didn't get to race with them a lot of years, but when I first started, those guys were still running modifieds, and I did get to compete with those guys for a couple of years before I ran them out of town.
So, I mean, actually, this is on our website. and app and wherever else you follow us online, we've been doing a greatest of all time fan vote tournament, right? And this is like a stats be damned, fans vote whoever they vote for, driver versus driver in a single elimination style tournament.
Right.
We've been doing this on our website for the last couple weeks, and it's going to culminate in a final 3. We're currently on round 4. And you're obviously still in the running, but you're going to end up coming up against guys like Buzzy probably in all likeliness. And I think just looking at the tournament brackets as they are, I think a lot of people would agree, and that we're kind of at a point where it's going to come down to you, Frankie Schneider, and Buzzy Rudiman in that final 3 in all likeliness. And so I guess how does it? Those guys being the guys that you looked up to and eventually ran out of town. How does it?
I said that tongue in cheek.
How would it? Yeah, I know. Of course. How would it? How would it feel to beat them, or how would it feel to lose to either of those guys in this vote in this tournament?
Well, I understand it's a little tiny bit of a popularity contest.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's definitely a popularity contest.
So we got to look at it that way too. But so it's all for fun. I mean, it's good to see people engaged in voting for the drivers that they've looked up to or seen or watched race over the years, and it's a great history lesson.
Yeah, I mean it's of course a popularity contest, and it was always designed that way, and it was just a fun way for fans to kind of rally for their favorite, and in a lot of ways it's unfair. In a lot of ways it's just totally for fun. I mean, because we have a number of people in the tournament that still race, and still have, like yourself, have an active presence and a fan base that you can turn to for votes, and so, Frankie Schneider is revered as one of the greatest of all time, and he's going to pull a lot of votes, but you have the ability to kind of
reach my current fan,
go out there and ask for your fan base to support you. So it's definitely just all for fun, and it's like a fun thing. Next one,
it honors the history of the Speedway, and that's what this year is all about, and that's what this weekend is going to be all about.
The goal was to kind of put somebody in the tournament for everybody, fans from 30 years ago, fans for now, It was you, Jerry Higbee, Jeff Hetzler, a number of guys, Tommy Meyer, were all in the tournament, all guys still racing. And then, we went back as far as like Ray Brown, and it's very few Ray Brown fans or people who saw Ray Brown race, I'm sure, left at this point. But, you had to get him on there to kind of represent the history and the whole scope of, all these decades of racing. So it's been fun to just kind of do it. We're going to do one on... probably going to do like best looking car one next, where we'll transition into, and Doug Bulgarian and Mike Gerda and the rest of Chris and everybody will all kind of come together and pick what we think are some of the best looking cars
classics,
from put them all in a randomly seed them and put another tournament together and put that up on the website. So that one should be fun too.
Absolutely.
And people, I think, maybe take it a little less personally too than the greatest driver, because I think purely about looks and
when it comes to
opinion.
Best looking car, I mean, it could be anybody. It could be somebody that never even qualified. So it's wide open.
Exactly, and I think that way you're paying even more tribute to the history. You're exposing more, not just the guys that were champions, multi-time winners, but like some of the more local guys that just had great looking cars.
Plus, we see I think also we see with Carl Van Horn or even the 666 Botcher car. That was sort of like their brand at the time. So it's it's kind of cool to see that. I mean, that's when you think of Buzzy Rudiman, you think of nothing but a red, white, blue 00. I mean, there's no other car that mattered. When you think of Wayne Rudiman, you think of that white M1 that he ran at Middletown. Those guys were that was their brand. That's what that's what you think of when you think of them. And it goes both ways. If you think of that car, you think of that driver. Think of that driver, you think of that look, that car, that yellow 71E. So kind of cool.
How does I mean, yours, you've been 20 for the most part for a long time, number 20, but your color schemes have kind of always evolved with the times. I noticed. So throughout the years,
I've actually been quite a few different numbers, really. I mean, 20 being my base number. The 20 is the number I started with, but when we when we did the deal with Auto Palace to be sponsored by them, they had sponsorships of a bunch of different divisions, including asphalt modifieds and this and that, and even a K&N NASCAR car. And their number was 72, so we adopted the number 72 for a few years with their sponsorship. And then when we moved to Budweiser, we were number 3. We were number 1 on the small block car, as everyone knows, in the early 90s. And then number 6 with Freightliner, also in the early. So I've had a bunch of different numbers through the years, but still, came back to my original number, which was 20, which is also the Madsen number,
right?
Who I've been, basically partnered with from the mid to late 90s.
So is that number comes from Madsen? Like, is there a significance to that?
That I hadn't been number 20 when I hooked up with those guys in 96, I think it was. I hadn't been number 20 for several years, since 88. But that was kind of their number also. So it kind of brought me back to where I was in the 80s.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's how we landed back on number 20. And
yeah.
With the exception of the other rides that I've had,
yeah,
the cars that came out of our shop were always number 20.
I think most people, I would say, and myself, we all see you as number 20 because of that iconic Pepsi car and everything. That really is, like, if you're not thinking, if I think Brett Hearn, I see your car now because I'm a modern fan, younger fan. But then alternatively, I see that Pepsi car too.
Right.
Like that's the, I see that as the then and the now.
Right.
So I've always, even though I know you've had other numbers, you've always kind of had 20 has been the. That's what I always think of.
Right.
Yeah. I like to talk about that.
And that's the way it is. And when I got to 2010, 11, I realized I wanted to, sort of. I kind of saw where the sponsorship stuff was, and and I knew that I was going to be with Madsen for a long time, and I wanted to like recreate a brand of our own, to do. And now we've had this look for, almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And now this is what everyone thinks of when they see that black number 20 with either yellow numbers or white numbers like we have now. But,
right.
That black and yellow car.
Yeah, I from a design perspective, and I'm like an artist and designer mostly, and that is, to me, you're always doing it right when you do like yellow on black because you got that high contrast. Yes. It's just always so visible. Well, and it's hard to do it without looking like you're asking to be seen, but like you got to do it right. You got to be kind of subtle. You got to get some good, but when you look at it and you look at it with the other cars, it really stands out.
It pops, right? Where my inspiration for the whole color combination came from watching a college football game.
Oh yeah, yeah. Which team?
It was I think it was either Oregon or Virginia, and there was a bowl game, and they were just they had these gray carbon fiber helmets with black, and then they just had the yellow accents, like the shoes or a little bit of color on the shoulders, and it was that fluorescent yellow, or maybe a little bit of fluorescent yellow on the gray helmets, and it was like, wow, that's a great look. I think that could be a good race car. That's where the inspiration came from.
Interesting. Yeah, it could definitely. I wonder, they must have been the originators because it definitely became like a trend. I think.
Oh,
at
it absolutely became a trend, and that was the first time I'd ever seen it.
Yeah.
And after that, the black and yellow thing just went wild.
Right. Yeah, it's not uncommon now, and even just using the neon colors in general has really helped. Like I noticed on the Halmar cars, they went from just a red letter. From like I think it was the year before, they went to like a neon red letter, like, and they just like it makes the whole thing pop more. Like,
well, if you look through the pits, there's very few cars that don't have some kind of neon on them.
Yeah.
Whether it be the numbers or striping or like if you don't have that, you're pretty much out of style.
Yeah.
In a way. I'm sure that'll change at some point, but that
styles come and go.
It's definitely a commonplace thing now. It really makes the cars look really good in person. A lot of color.
Speaking of styles coming and going, you've kind of seen a lot of them come and go. What is like and even as it pertains to sponsorship, like kind of, how have you seen it evolve and change the way that, graphics on cars and sponsor representation and how you can kind of maximize your, the potential gains for your sponsors, or, obviously things have changed over the years, and you've seen, you used to have Pepsi, you used to have Budweiser, you used to have these, bigger brands on cars, your cars specifically, and now it seems a little more niche. Like it's more, mostly you'll see, industry brands, shops, automotive brands. How is that kind of, or how have you seen that change over the years? I mean,
well, there's two things that we're kind of like, we're almost talking about two different things.
Yeah, we kind of are here.
One is the look. How is this look? The look of the car has evolved as graphics have changed. And the ability to do a wrap.
Yeah.
Which gives you unlimited possibilities. Gives you the ability to have a print look, have carbon fiber looks, any kind of graphic look. It's limitless. So
and you can change it out much easier.
And you can change it out much easier. But I mean, so you've got that into play, and so it's kind of like it's a monkey see, monkey do thing. I mean, I remember placing sponsors like on the doorpost. Nobody had ever done that before, or on the inside of the door, where visibility is really good. And then now it's like everybody's.
Right.
Like that's just commonplace. Everybody does that. You use those spots, and you try to sell them to sponsors. So you have all these different spots on the car.
Is there any truth to the idea of car bodies getting bigger, boxier, and less aesthetically pleasing to accommodate for sponsor space? I feel like I've heard people talk about this like it's a thing.
Well, when you look at our cars, our cars really do have a lot of space compared to even other cars. So there's a lot of different spots on our cars we can use. But I don't know if you really want them to be much bigger than they are. They're already hard to maintain as they are,
Right.
So now that being said, but I think from the sponsorship perspective, I think that there was a time when there was a little bit more corporate involvement, and I think the sponsorship thing has kind of evolved into more of a business to business thing. Like most of the people that sponsor me are doing it because they love racing and want to be part of a winning combination, or they're doing it to be involved in that racing circle of businesses, and
right.
That's what's great for Madison over at Doors, is that they are well known in the racing community. So they when it comes to somebody needing a garage door, who do you think of? Somebody that's
right.
involved in racing, and that's where they do their business to business.
Right, and racing fans do. Racing fans are an interesting breed that are incredibly loyal and do absolutely shop sponsor brands, which is.
When I think of some things that I need, the first thing I would think of is
who's on a race car.
Who's on a race car? I'm gonna call them.
Yeah.
Whether it be a pole barn company,
Yeah.
or a concrete guy, or whatever it might be, or an exterminator. That's the guy that's the person that I want to call first.
Yeah. That's I see that is absolutely how it works now. But I almost have a sense of concern because I wonder, obviously we see diminishing numbers of like new fans, right? We see a lot of legacy fans. We see a lot of legacy competitors. A lot of son of a driver, grandson of a driver. A lot of my dad brought me here. Let me
just say something about that, because I've often said this before, that I think that in a kind of in a funny way, racing is handed down through the generations like hunting is, and fishing, and most people that are fans even today, or especially the younger people, they didn't become a fan without being influenced by their parents.
Right.
And the fact that they were either involved in some kind of cars or racing, or had come to the speedway when they were younger. I'd been brought to the speedway when they were, 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
And that's just, that's my observation. I don't know if
right.
for good or for bad, but
well,
I think that's the way it works.
That's the way. I definitely think that's the way it works, and I think it is good. But I also see the problem is that you do have to somehow be injecting new fans into that throughout, because otherwise it'll diminish over time. Everything
right.
kind of, it'll just piddle out kind of,
right.
or
reintroducing
right.
fans that
like there's no guarantee my kids will care about racing.
Right.
I'm not a competitor. I'm just a casual fan. It would take a lot for to kind of pass that on.
Right.
It might not stick, and that might be the end of, my grandfather went to the races, my father went to the races, took me as a kid. My kid might not want to go, and I might be perfectly okay with that, and that's the end of the line,
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we replace the Jake Meyer line of dirt racing fans? And I wonder if trying to reignite a corporate interest wouldn't help in bringing in those new fans, and maybe what's kind of the barrier to getting these corporate sponsors.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I think it is. Back in the in the 80s and early 90s, we had the sanctioning body that was doing a lot of TV. They had a weekly show that everybody was able to watch, and they were bringing in corporate sponsors because they had a big pool of tracks and it was a bigger body of things, and we were getting a lot of exposure. We had some live racing on Thursday nights that people could see all out in the Midwest, and I remember being different places. We were traveling around. Sometimes we were like in Ohio, and people would absolutely know. We'd be at a convenience store or something. People would pick us up and say, "Hey, I saw your race last night. Great race."
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's pretty cool,
Yeah.
So there was a lot more of that type of exposure that led to more, desire for more corporate involvement.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I think that you really hit on something, or you kind of made a spark go off in my head, and that's you said TV, and we're now in a time where TV is almost kind of going the way of dirt racing, right? Where it's obviously still here, it's thriving, but it's the old way, and it's kind of
and there's so many options.
And there's so many options, and and even so, like this podcast, for example, it's no overhead. It's I come to your shop with a microphone and we talk, and I put it out on the internet, and thousands of people listen to it. Versus producing a TV show. Or it's sticking GoPros in cars more often and capturing all that action on the track, or it's live streaming, and I know that when we live stream at our races that I have people watching all over the country, and I think maybe it's that the old corporate mentality doesn't yet see the kind of online significance or the significance of streaming tech, or just us self-producing all this content, whereas maybe we need to be kind of targeting the new corporate, the upstarts, the young, Google. Why isn't Google on a race car? Or, it's
true.
Because you're very much still targeting like an old corporate kind of industry to get these. They might not care. They're more interested in TV.
Well, this is what I've said about our brand of dirt kart racing is that we are in a funny way, we are too small to be big, and we're too big to be small. When it comes to the big block modified and a touring series and stuff like that. That's what's so challenging about this type of racing is that it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of dollars to do it, yet we're too small to be big.
Yeah, that's kind of I've been aware of this kind of issue, right? It's very we're in this gray area where
we're in a tough spot.
Yeah,
we're on that fence.
You're very much spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to compete at the highest level of this sport, but it's not a right. I mean, you're not it's not a televised sport. You're not on Fox Sports every Saturday night. You're not but it is still such a high level of competition at such a high cost.
Right. And it's not really that much different than like trophy trucks or anything like that. I mean, they definitely far outspend what they could ever get back, even, and that's a difficult sponsor too. But so it's a motorsport. It's a challenge for motorsports everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in general, just an overall, what do you see as because motorsports overall is in this weird place. I mean, what's the Brett Hearn vision of the future, or how do you plan to? Obviously, you're still racing, and I imagine after you decide to stop racing, you'll still be involved in some capacity. I mean, what's kind of your strategy, for the future?
I mean, there's in this industry, there's a lot of different things you can do, you know. So it's just a matter of deciding exactly what I want to do,
right,
and what I can be as passionate about. I mean, right now my focus is on winning a couple championships this year.
Yeah.
And that's our focus. But you know, come October, that could change.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know you've done some work in trying to develop racing technologies that makes it more accessible or makes it, you know, I mean, do you think that there's that's kind of a big thing that needs to happen, that we need to kind of make the system work in a way where we're pulling new young competitors in and we're allowing them to move up the ranks,
right,
you know, at an appropriate speed so that the sport, you know, thrives and grows.
Well, you know, this crate sportsman thing has been fantastic for a guy that can, it's a great way to get started. And, you know, now how do we, and you know, it's like not everybody's going to be a superstar. Okay.
Right.
But, you know, when you start to look at numbers like we've had this year at Orange County with 45 to 60 sportsman cars, that's a lot. It's almost too many, you know. But it's a great way for guys that can get started with an engine that's $3,500 or $3,700 in a crate, and you know, $1,000 to $1,500 more accessories. And there's a ton of really good used cars out there that you can get into them fairly reasonable. So, you know, you're gonna find the next Anthony Prego come out of the Sportsman, or Tyler Dipple, or some of these other guys that have come out of the Sportsman ranks. It's not going to be everybody. Right. You know, some of the guys that are doing it for fun are going to be happy doing that and staying right there. And then other guys are going to excel and want to move up and want to go into the bigger and better things. And that's what we have to, you know, that's what we have to look at, is finding those handful of guys that are good enough to move up.
Yeah.
And have the desire to, and then, you know, and have the ability to put sponsors or friends or partners together, right, to make it happen.
Do you find that it's still easy for these guys to find the means and the sponsors to move up? Or,
in my opinion, if you know, I look at the guys that are really committed to moving on, or to being really good in the sport, and somehow those guys usually find a way, and then there becomes a tipping point where all of a sudden that guy's like wanted. Because there's owners out there that want good drivers, but they just don't know exactly who they're looking for.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you get to that tipping point where, okay, I'm Stuart Friesen, I can drive for anybody, and everybody wants you. Or even like, you know, where Prego's at in his career, where he's driving for other cars now. Other owners want him.
Right.
So that's what I call the tipping point, where all of a sudden you're desirable.
Well, it almost looks, we kind of just had that happen at Orange County, right, with Dylan Store, right?
There's another good example.
Yeah,
perfect example.
Yeah, he was in a small block, and then now all of a sudden I see him in the '66 Atlas car for 2 weeks in a row, and I'm like, oh, look at that.
Right, now he's got his first opportunity.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, you know, if he does well in that opportunity, he moves on to the next opportunity, or somebody wants to help him do his own deal, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But again, it's a lot of commitment, and you know, it's being in the right place at the right time, and all those things that happen when we're in business, you know. So that's kind of the way it works. I think that you know, if you have enough commitment and enough desire to do it, that most people, and you're good enough at it, usually happens.
As someone who's made a career out of it, do you think, you know, I mean, obviously the commitment is the big part of it, but do you think that there's also, I mean, that your ability to kind of market yourself and put yourself out there, and, you know, that had a big impact on your success and your ability to move upward in the sport?
Well, I mean, it starts with your ability to, you know, put a good car together, to understand the car, to be able to tune on the car, and then obviously to be able to drive the thing well. It starts with that,
right?
And then it becomes, after that, it becomes, well, how can I sell? You know, can I sell myself? Can I get you on board with me? You want to be part of my team? We can stand in victory lane together, you know, and then you know, trying to put that all together, you know.
Yeah.
And then keeping all those people. I mean, and even today, I mean, I have tons of people that are involved in my team at some level, and keeping all those people in the loop, keeping them all involved, keeping them all excited.
Yeah.
And you know, becomes this the second part of the job after I'm done marketing myself.
So back in the day, I don't know the year, right before my time, but you did a like a TV piece, I think it was, right, called Hot Pursuit, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
So something like that, right? I mean, back then when you did that, did it lead to anything? Like, was it, did you get exposure from doing stuff like that led to deals that helped you advance your career? Or?
I mean, I don't know if there was any one particular deal, but I think it all built on that. It built everything up and up and up, and so it's that was like 81, and we had the guy that was doing and still does my PR stuff, John Snyder, got word that there was a station which is now Fox in New York, was looking to do a documentary. Well, a documentary then is reality TV now.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's an interesting piece because you watch it feels like the early '90s reality TV kind of piece.
Right, exactly. And so they want to do a documentary on a dirt track racer. So they were looking at a couple different guys, and he got with them, and we ended up getting the gig, and so that's how that all happened. And now it's like it's pretty cool to watch it, in today's day and age and see how things have changed and how they haven't changed, but how they have changed, and also to understand that I came from my dad's garage just like everybody else does.
Right.
We were working on the garage, at the house in a small garage, and we had one car and one engine, and we started racing, and that's how we started. We raced as a family, and so it's cool to know that I started exactly where everybody else does.
Yeah, I didn't know all that much about your early career until I started really digging and doing research and history and all this 100-year stuff, and I watched that piece and I was like, this is awesome. It's kind of hilarious in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and
it is. When you see all the people on the track with my now brother-in-law laid out on the front stretch after a flip down the front stretch, and they couldn't have staged it any better. It was all real. Yeah. So, and how many people, back in the day, people just came running out on the pits to just, help the driver get out of the car or whatever was out of control. So, it's pretty interesting to see how that's all changed.
But, nowadays, like, and I guess I'm not trying to call anybody out, but nowadays it's so easy to kind of self-produce content like that, or even kind of just get the people in your community to help you produce content like that, and you might not have instantly have all these eyes on it, right? But I mean, for example, I've shared a video from a driver at the track that, in a video that he took this year from, a GoPro in his car. And just because it was an interesting moment, that video has hundreds of thousands of views, just because we've shared it and promoted it, and other tracks have shared it, drivers have shared it, and it was as easy as strapping a GoPro into your car, Right. And so I think that in a lot of ways, as a track, it's on us to ramp up our efforts to market people, and this podcast is part of that, and our online presence is part of that. But drivers also themselves need to really kind of.
Well, I think now. I mean, now in this day and age, it's easier to self-promote than it ever has been. Right. And to reach a ton of people.
Look at like Mandy Pouch, not a driver, but is somebody in the community who has created, a brand out of herself just by being online and, being a part of a community and interacting with people. I mean, It's really, she's created a business for herself just by using her personality. Right. And a driver has the same tools available to them. Totally. To promote themselves and their personality.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, we used to have, if you didn't have a folder with some, sheets of paper in there about information about yourself, and you didn't put out a press release every once in a while, there was no way for people to even know who you were. Right. Unless you were winning races.
Right. You had to be in victory lane. Right.
You had to be in victory lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys also had open trailers a little bit too, so cruising around, you at least got to see
you got some
that.
Exposure
you get a little rolling advertisements once in a while, which is probably doesn't count for much, but I mean that's the tools we have now are incredible. It's totally like I said, this is just two guys and a microphone, and I expect thousands of people to listen to this,
right?
Within a day after it being posted. So at the level we're talking about, at the level of sport that we are, the amount of fans that we can expect to pull in, it's awesome to just have a couple thousand people listening.
Right.
And we're not a nationally known sport even. We're a very regional sport. Dirt racing, obviously, nationwide, but our specific brand of dirt racing is very regional. So
right.
it's like, to just to have that many people looking at it,
well,
it's significant.
It makes me think of when I did the post on my Facebook page about what my plans were for this year. I had kind of held off, and we weren't really
you
exactly
made us
sure.
Yeah, you sweat us out.
You're talking about like over 60,000 views. I mean, that blows me away.
Yeah, it like some of the highest rated or engaged with posts I've seen, like in all of the sport of racing. And this is, and I don't know everything. I don't know everybody's numbers and everything, but I can to an extent see what other tracks are getting in terms of their likes and their engagement rating and stuff like that. And we compete with the best of them. We compete with Eldora in terms of just like how much our fan base interacts with us online. Not all of it's positive, but it really speaks to how engaged and how passionate our fan base is, and for especially for our size and for our it's pretty crazy. And I've seen posts like when I posted about Jessica Friesen at Eastern States, being the first woman to qualify for the 200, and what did she place, like 12th, I think. It was a very good finish, and she did a little interview, and that interview has, again, hundreds of thousands of views, and tens of thousands of people have liked it or commented on it or shared it, and it's cool. And you got to kind of, it's a little bit of a game to kind of pick the right moment or the right guy to put on the pedestal and get everybody's attention. And sometimes it's Brett Hearn, sometimes it's Stuart Friesen when he's around. Sometimes it's one of our local guys who are just as competitive and win more often than most people do at Orange County.
Right. Yep.
So it's a lot of just keeping your eyes and ears open and kind of just trying to give people something exciting or something to be excited about that's going on.
Yep.
And I think this year we've really done that. We've opened ourselves up to crazy amount of feedback online. We're hearing all sorts of reactions to the 100th anniversary event, and I think I've been getting this telemarketer call nonstop. But I think that one of the things about this anniversary event, and that we're kind of, despite all the reactions to it, the reactions to pricing and all this stuff, is that we're looking at an event that is like, it's like you'd pay $1,000 to take your family to the Super Bowl, and that happens every year. This is going to happen once in a lifetime. It's like if the Stanley Cup only ever happened once every 100 years, and you're a hockey fan, you're going to go to that event, right? Like, you're not going to miss the once every 100 years.
Right, if you have the opportunity. Right?
Most people, and most race fans, and even most Orange County fans, because, again, in 100 years since 1919, and at that first race in 1919, were more fans present than what we would see on average now. In all that early history, there are more race fans, Orange County race fans, that are no longer living, that will not have the privilege of seeing the 100th anniversary event. The majority of our fans will not get to appreciate this. Mm-hmm. So anyone who has the ability to go, you have to go. Right? I mean,
You would think, right?
Yeah, I mean, who's the biggest Orange County Fair Speedway fan ever, right? Ray Martin. He wrote the book,
right,
and he did all the research.
I have the book.
Ray Martin's not going to get to go to this 100th anniversary event,
Right.
But he dreamed about it, I'm sure. You know, he imagined that it would happen one day.
Right.
So it's like, if you're here and if you can go, you gotta go.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, it kind of blows my mind to even think about, because it's hard to perceive even what life was like back in 1919. And you start looking at the pictures, you start looking at other historical context, right? Like the fact that, like, oh wow, World War I only just ended the same year we started racing, or that, like, we started racing before women could vote in this country. We started racing the year that, like, it just crazy stuff. Right. And it's almost like impossible for my young mind to fathom. I'm like,
Well, I mean, just from my perspective, I mean, when I first started helping my dad in the pits, women weren't allowed in the pits.
Yeah, I was actually reading
Which
that.
Is, to me, is just, I mean, when I think about it now, it's just crazy.
It's,
but that wasn't
it's pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy. So,
it's not something you ever want to acknowledge, but man, I wonder how it dealt with segregation back in the day. I mean, how did it deal with, you know what I mean? Like, was there, these are just things that you don't even really think about anymore, because it's just times have changed so much, it's just
absolutely.
Like, women not allowed in the pits. Like, man, who else wasn't allowed in the pits? Right. Like, it's just, but that's, we won't celebrate that part of it.
All right. I'm just doing a history lesson here, right?
because we're celebrating 100 years of women's right to vote, and obviously it's still a hot topic politically and socially right now in America. So it's a very interesting. It's interesting to think about.
Sure.
Sure. There's tons of women in the pits now. Like,
half the pits are
women,
it seems like, right?
Yeah, and that's right. Everybody, it's a family sport. I couldn't imagine drivers not having their wives, their daughters, their kids in the pits with them. I mean, like Tony Monaco's daughter there, who was our Little Miss OCFS. I mean, she's like, I couldn't imagine telling her that she wouldn't be allowed in the pits. She loves it,
Right.
Man.
And the thing is, I mean, like that now in this day and age, I mean, it really is a family. It's a great way to bond the family together. To get involved with the racing, and that's really been one thing that's really kept my family really close for all these years.
Well, let me tell you, one of my highlights anytime you're in Victory Lane is your son. I love his Victory Lane celebrations. He's like among the best.
Yeah, I hear you. He is a ham.
There's nothing like somebody who will get in there and ham it up in Victory Lane, and he does the work that you're not doing.
Yeah, I know. He covers me pretty good.
Always a joy, man. What else to talk about? I mean, I feel like obviously you could go on forever. I could ask you about all sorts of things. You've been there for it all. I guess kind of, what is your what's kind of your long-term plan here? I mean, you're leading the points at Orange County. You're leading the points at Albany, Saratoga. You're still very competitive. You're still racing for the foreseeable future, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's all about being competitive, and do I have as much desire to travel like I did at one time? It's probably that part's kind of going away a little bit. We made the decision to come back to Orange County this year, be a little closer to home, not be on the road as much. We committed to running for the championship at Orange County, which abbreviates our Super Dirt Series schedule. Gives us a little bit more flexibility to do races we want to do, maybe some that we don't want to do. So we got all that in play, and I'm just really enjoying my time. Now seems like a little bit less pressure to travel, be on to the next game somewhere far away, be sleeping on the road, driving all night long. All those things. But the fact that we have this track that's got a lot of cash on the line, this close to home, is a great thing for me. It's great.
Yeah, you're very close.
Yeah,
I was
35 minutes away, really. I mean, so
I drove here from I'm not too far from Middletown, and I was like, oh damn, this is
it's easy. It's very easy.
Yeah, he's hooked up. This is a good spot.
Yeah, it's good. So it's all good for me in that respect. So, hey, we're doing our thing. It's a little bit different this year than what we've done in the past, but we're doing it.
Yeah, I mean your consistency's paid off. You've been running well, and yeah, you're leading the points. Man, last Saturday that was some of the better racing I've seen all season. I mean, Tommy Meyer was gone, but you and Craig Mitchell and Perego there behind him, that was good racing.
Yeah,
I was having a good time watching you guys.
I felt like Saturday night we were a little bit off compared to the two previous races, but that's all process and trying to get better each week and making small changes to try to get better. Sometimes they work, and sometimes they take you backwards a little bit. So it's always with that process, trying to get better.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're doing something right.
Well, also getting back to the Centennial race. I mean, part of the plan, the overall plan was, hey, we got to tune up for that thing.
Well, right. Yeah, right. Everything's kind of building to that,
yeah,
right?
I mean, if we're not ready by August 15th to compete for that win, shame on us, because we've been there every week working on different combinations to try to find out what we think is best for us.
Do you have going into that event? Do you plan to use a new car? Do you have the car built already?
Well,
and you're kind of trying to work it into shape now.
The original plan was to use the car that we use at Eastern States, which is basically my old Syracuse car that we basically set aside. It's been so strong at Eastern States, but now with this plan to resurface the Speedway,
things will change.
Now we've got a month to figure it out. It's
Yep.
not going to be easy. And it could be a whole different ball game for us.
So
and everything that we've learned so far this year, but we didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
We didn't see that coming 3 months ago or
Right.
4 months ago.
Right.
So when that happens, we're going to have to figure it out quick.
So at that point, it's like, is winning kind of goes on the back burner in favor of getting it dialed in, figuring out what's going on, and getting it ready for that 100th anniversary event. But at the same time, you got to maintain that points lead. So it's a lot of pressure, huh?
Exactly. Well, honestly, between the middle of July and the Centennial race, there's not a lot of big block races.
No.
Just a couple.
Yeah, you got a few opportunities.
We'll be using the small block car to try to figure out what we need to do for the big block car and try to figure out what
Just to get some track time, yeah.
So,
do you need a sportsman ride or something too?
Yeah, I get in trouble for that.
Oh yeah, I don't think we'd hear the end of it.
Yeah,
that would be funny.
So it's going to be an interesting couple months coming up, for sure.
Yeah. Man, well, we've been talking for a while. I guess maybe I'll wrap it up with just kind of a growing up.
Yeah, and I got to put a plug in for myself
plug
because we talk about self-promotion.
Well, we can do plugs at the end. We can do a whole big plug
Let's
thing.
plug the big show, which is coming up next Tuesday.
Absolutely.
It'd be terrible if I didn't mention that. But
Yep.
Again, looking for a sold-out crowd and exciting race and a huge car count. It's a good compact show that is very exciting and fun, and it's all about the fun. So.
And I got to plug my buddy Gary Ballou. Will be there with
Absolutely.
his book. Because if I don't plug Gary, he'll call me and tell me.
Exactly. Yeah, Gary,
tell me about it.
Gary, the Batmobile is coming back for a second viewing. If you haven't seen the Batmobile in the newest version of it, the newest refurbished version, it's a piece of art. Incredible.
Yeah, and always a pleasure to see Gary and talk with Gary, and you don't want to miss that. So if you're at the big show, go see Gary too.
Exactly. So we have some reserved seats. We still have a couple of reserved seats left.
Where can they get tickets?
Thebigshow11.com.
Okay.
You can go right on there. You can pick out the seat that you want electronically, just like you would if you're going on a flight or in a movie theater. And it's really pretty slick. And we start racing at 7. The cars get on the track about 6:15 on Tuesday night. And Albany Saratoga is quite a bit smaller than Middletown, so the action's very compact and very exciting, and it's pretty much wide open from the time we start the race to the time we finish.
Now this is the 11th big show?
This is the 11th version.
11th big show.
Yep.
Very good. Yeah, you always have very cool trophies for the big show.
We do.
I love those.
We have a very nice one for this year. I just saw a picture of it yesterday. Should be here by Monday.
Nice.
Yeah, exciting.
Very cool. Well, Brett, thank you for wasting an hour talking dirty with me. I'll let you get back to work and get back to work myself.
I hope it was informative and interesting, and I hope everyone enjoys it.
I think that this has been, like I said, I kind of came into this and I wanted to talk to you more about just personal stuff, maybe get to just know Brett, not talk so much about racing. But when I thought about it, my idea, my thought is just like, this is a guy that's done 1 million interviews, right? Probably more so than anybody else I'm going to interview on this show. And so how can I do something different, or how can I ask him questions that he hasn't been asked before? Right. And I don't know that I did that today, and I don't think that matters.
I feel like this was a little bit more of a conversation than an interview. So that's kind of cool.
I think ultimately your history and your personal history with the track and just your experience, it meant I had to talk to you about this stuff, and maybe we'll get another chance to sit down and we'll do like more of a silly interview or something.
Yeah, we'll do it again for sure.
But I think it was important to kind of talk about the history and talk about the 100th anniversary and, even get into your mind a little bit about what you're doing, for that event and for the future of racing. And I think we definitely had people are gonna have a lot to say, I think, about this conversation. Cool. So it was a good one.
That's good.
Yeah. And we'll get it up online, and you can share it, and hopefully you like what you hear. I always am kind of embarrassed every time I hear it. I'm still not that good at this. Still learning. Thank you so much, Brett.
Thank you very much.